All right, well today we're gonna do something a little bit different. I gotta head over to Murs to help move some planters he built for my mom. So while I'm over there, I'm gonna trick him into giving us a little kind of build breakdown on that Amazon, that Volvo he's working on. He's ripping it all apart. He's at that thing as long as I can remember, so 30 some odd years, maybe longer. So he's doing a little rust repair to it and stuff like that. I'm trying to convince him to start a little YouTube channel. I want to give him an old GoPro and let him go after it. So if that's what you're into, watch this video, comment below, tell your friends, and get on Mur so we can get them to start filming stuff. Oh, weird. I don't know, a truck just like that. Mur's always borrowing it. Can move some lumber. Keep it in here. All right, we'll move some planters and then look at the cart. All right, Mur. So I came over to move these planters he's building for my mom, and we're not doing that. So when we were doing the, I think it was a square body, I guess, that was here. We were putting a windshield in it, and this thing was off the side. God, you work slow. That was in September. And I've done like 6 cars since then. So Mur's had this car longer than me, eh? When did you buy this thing?
Gotta be 30 years anyway, 35 years.
So it's a 67 Volvo 123 GT. Now tell them why it's special, being a 1 year only, whatever. Go full teacher.
Go full teacher. Audiovisual. Well, way back in the 60s, Volvo had this body style which started in 1958. And they also had the little sports car, which was used by the Saint and the Saint TV shows. And they made them both up until 1967, and they started to change the little sports car to fuel injection. So what they had left over was the drive line from the 1800. It was called the Volvo P1800. And the basic engine was the same, but it had a different camshaft and made a little bit more power, slightly different exhaust, things like that. So they had all these high performance, if you want to call it that. It had 118 horsepower, while the standard one had 90. But they had those high performance engines left over, and they put them in the sedan, which is this, for 1 year only. Now this car actually is registered as a 1968, but all 1967 123 GTs are the same. They made about 1,500 of them, and they didn't come to the States, far as I know. They did come to Canada because they were put together in Halifax, Nova Scotia. So they had this engine with a different camshaft. This car is a 4-speed manual with overdrive. It's an electronic overdrive that Volvo used for years. That's the little stock on the side, like where the turn.
Oh, we'll go inside after.
Okay.
Because it's got a cool dash and stuff like that, right?
Yeah. So they had that left over. It has a limited slip rear end. It has an alternator instead of a generator.
Wow.
That was the first year of alternators in these things, so that's a little different.
The rear ends, like, are they all like this? All Volvos? I've never actually seen this thing with the wheels. Well,
that is, yeah, this
like,
is
it's got like a 4-link setup with like a limiting strap.
Yeah,
that's cool. That's all Volvos?
That's like a Spicer rear end, similar to what's in Jeeps. Uses a tapered axle and a roller bearing in there with grease. So there's a seal in here that seals the diff fluid in, and this is packed with grease like a wheel bearing.
So when you got this thing, it was rough, and you restored it 30 some odd years ago, and now it's 30 years later and needed it again, basically.
Basically, yeah.
So it's done some rocker work, the doors. It's got little blemishes you can kind of see. And you know, the paint's just cracking and stuff like that. But the big issue is like up in the grill shell and stuff like that. It's kind of ugly, eh? And fenders and.
Yeah, this was the worst right here, because this was original. Never, when it was painted, it was never done. So it had no filler or anything on it. The other side was. So this was original stuff that rusted through after, you know, whatever, 60 years.
Well, pop inside and take a look what it looks like in there. All right, we're going inside here. I remember driving this thing when I was like 16. I haven't seen it since.
That's right. This is unique to the 123. This little dashboard piece in here. This is just a little cover. That's
for your cell phone?
For my cell phone that they haven't been invented yet.
Cigarettes?
That's right. This is obviously not a factory wheel, but that's a little different on this car. These seats recline like this. And they're actually Recaro seats before, you know, when Recaro was not common, but it was
for your
common
lady
in
friend.
Europe. Yeah. Characteristic of these things is the big long gear shift lever that Volvos had up until 1972.
Holy crap, yeah.
Are all the different cars that they had. It had four-way flashers, which I think was a dealer installed option back then. This car has, it always had shoulder belts, but 30 years ago I put shoulder belts out of a 1973 in it because they're retracting. The other ones were just solid. This was one of the first cars Volvo had that had 3-point seat belts long before anybody else thought 3-point belts were a good idea.
But they were like, you had to pull this one and that one and join them together at the latch.
No, it was one thing, but it just had a hoop, and you had to adjust. It was fairly elaborate. So these ones are the inertia reels out of another car, and coincidentally enough, the bolt holes for that lined exactly up with the bolt holes from 1967. So there you go.
Volvo. Smart people.
We have an AM/FM radio, which was the big option back then.
The old grab bar for when you're really whipping her around.
Yeah, that's right. That's the standard equipment on those things.
So was the overdrive? It's a switch?
The overdrive is on this side here. It's just like a turn signal switch. So once you get rolling and you're in 4th gear, you click it into overdrive and it drops the RPM about 30%. So it's like a 5th gear. And it's Laycock de Normanville is what it's called, a British design that they used on a lot of British cars, Austin Healey's and MGs and things like that, but also used on Volvos.
Were they all this speedometer thing?
Yeah.
That was all...
That's all the same, yeah. No different.
This thing was terrible. It bounced like crazy. I remember when I drove it.
Yeah, it's sort of a 5-mile-an-hour error one way or the other type of thing.
Well, this thing... Hey, you gotta get on the road. I want to drive it again.
Well, we're trying.
You're working slow, Mer. So was the roof... The headliner's all mangled? You took it all over?
I took it. The headliner was ripped, and I got a headliner from a car that was at the auto wrecker 20 years ago, but it's a lot of work to put in, so I never bothered to do it. So
sounds about right.
Now's the time.
Yeah. I mean, otherwise, the dash isn't too bad. Got a couple cracks in it.
Yeah, it's got a crack in here, which is...
And you're saying the tacks... Like
the tack came originally equipment on this car, and they used to be common as dirt. Now they're several $100s if you need one. Was it only on this car, or was it on the 1800s too? The 1800 is completely different dashboard. Oh yeah. But so that was only on 122. It was an optional on 122s, and early 140s had that. Well, those things, you gotta get on it, Mer. So this motor, Mer was just telling me, is... I'm on the wrong side. Yeah. They can read upside down. Yes. I have the original engine that came with the car. This one is bored out. Originally it had a 1.8 liter engine, so this is bored out to 2 liters. And it has camshaft and retainers and valve springs from a company called IPD, which is big Volvo high performance place there in Oregon. But they're big now. Were they big when you did this? Yeah, this car has the IPD valve cover, the cam. It has sway bars, which were that's how they originally came to fame. Which it did not used to have a rear sway bar, so it has that and a big front sway bar, so it handles much better. And it always had disc brakes, right? Always had disc brakes. But you're going to change it over to a different master? A tandem circuit master cylinder, because this has a single circuit master cylinder. This device here is electronic ignition out of a 1975 Volvo. This engine design, which is the B series engine, B18 or B20 if it's a 2 liter, they were made for years and years and years. Unfortunately, all the stuff just bolts on, so the distributor just fits exactly in, wired it up, and now it has electronic ignition like a newer Volvo. Well, that's pretty handy. With all that extra, so the 123 had 118 horsepower. Yeah. And this is now over top of that even? Yeah. Yeah, I don't know what it would have. So it has like 119? Yeah, that's right. Surprised you kept her on the road. Yeah, well, it's not exactly super high performance. I remember this thing though, like when you drive it,
you're not tearing gears, but it was cool. It was kind of sporty for what it was, and it had a kind of cool exhaust on it. It had a cool
it's got
voice
a
note
bigger
to it.
exhaust on it. Yeah.
So it was kind of it was what it was.
Yeah. Has I have a different set of carburetors for it. These carburetors are called SU. Which is a British design, very common. The slides go up and down like this. They're a variable Venturi carburetor, they're called. And I have the bigger carburetors for it, which I'm rebuilding. So it'll have the bigger carburetors off a 1970s B20, so a little bit more power. But still, nobody knows that they're not factory but me and 3 other people.
Yeah,
I'm sure.
well, there might be some Volvo nerds watching.
Oh, there might be, and that would be about it.
We do Tri-5 Chevys and 123 GTs.
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
But really, I mean, I don't know. The problem is just sat outside and it had a couple of cracks in the paint, and then water would get in it, it would freeze, and then crack and have these little issues. That's, I guess, all over the fenders and all that stuff, right? So, yeah. Merle will do his thing. He should have just started polishing it. You could have just probably polished it right back to life, as far as I'm concerned.
Well, the paint is pretty good. Like spots of it that are not screwed up. That's 30 years old, and that's just single stage urethane paint. So that's lasted quite a while.
Well, this was, I mean, whatever, 20 years ago, it was a sharp looking car. I remember that, driving it, and at that point, it would have been a 15-year-old paint job at least. So we all want to know how you found it, because if there's 1,500 in the world, and Mer's just a lucky winner.
I started my teaching gig in 1985 when Dan was just past the glint in my eye, so to speak.
We're not talking age here, yeah.
I see, okay. And one of the people I got to know, it was her brother's car. This car, I have the original steering wheel, which is very characteristic. It's a great big bus driver type steering wheel with a big GT symbol in it. And I had lots of Volvos back then. I used to work for Volvo, so we've had Volvos for many, many years. And he said, oh, my brother has an old Volvo. And I thought it's some clapped out 140, like who knows. Well, it says, oh no, well it has GT in it. And my little eyes went, So this is kind of like the story where, this guy's got an old Chevy in the barn and it's a 1963 Corvette split window of the Volvo ilk. So it was her brother's car. He was the second owner, bought it from somebody when it was a year old, put 100,000 miles on it, rebuilt the engine, and then due to health problems, he quit driving it, and it was just sitting in Brandon, Manitoba, which is about a 4-hour drive from where we are now. And it sat for quite a long time, and that's how I ended up getting it.
And then did you immediately restore it, or did you drive it at that point?
No, I got it and took it all apart and went through it. A lot of stuff. Back then, parts were very common for these things. So it had new brakes and wheel cylinders and all that kind of stuff back then. Brake hoses, tie rods, that type of ilk. And really, it was... it ran fine, and it still runs fine. Like the engine part of these cars lasts forever.
But then you did the motor, this motor's in it?
I bought another car that had that engine in it. It was a fellow that I used to work with, and he did the motor up on it, and then the car got smashed up.
Oh yeah.
So I took the driveline out of it and a few other little pieces. This is, coincidentally enough, my second 123 GT.
Well, I didn't know that.
Well, Dan's mom had a 123 GT when we were courting, which is pretty strange. Which was
I thought it was a 122, that greeny one.
Yeah, it's a 123 GT,
huh.
and she drove that for many years. But part of her job at the time involved driving for work, so you can't daily an old car like that summer and winter, and so we had to get rid of it after, probably 4 or 5 years of.
Well, that also was before it was kind of anything. Like even that, like when I was driving this thing when I was 16, like 15, 20 years ago, it was an old car, but it wasn't what it is now.
No.
I mean, it was different, and you didn't see them out there, but it wasn't a $15,000 or $20,000 car when it was done. It was, a nice kind of whatever, $5,000 or $8,000 or something like that.
The 120 body series was made from like in the late 50s all the way up to 1969 or 70. and actually a few years past that, but not in Canada. So you would see them
Yeah.
on the road, and they look exactly the same as the other ones.
Other than a badge on the back.
You have to be a Volvo guy to field identify one of these as being a 1, 2, 3 compared to anything else. But there's the badge on the back, and there's supposed to be a badge, you know, on here, which is taken off on each side, which I have. So.
Well, there you go. So that's a rundown of Murr's hot rod that he's working on. He's been going a little slow. It's been cold here, but so he's doing the body work. He's going to switch the brakes around and then just service it kind of front to back. Obviously, do some interior work. But you saw the car. You know what it needs. So now what you guys got to do is, if you want to see this thing, comment. I'm trying to get Murr to start doing a little bit of filming and either put it on this channel or start his own, because everyone wants more Murr. He's also been a little busy polishing. I don't know why. But so yeah, if you want to see it, give him a little bit of kick in the ass. He needs it, right?
And in 3 weeks, you can come and see the Mercedes in the back garage. That's the next one.
Yeah, the old Mercedes. No one wants to see that. But yeah, so that's where we're going to leave it. Like, share, subscribe. Tell Murr to get a YouTube channel. And he's looking for miscellaneous parts and body panels. If you're local, you have me watching this, and you want to sell stuff cheap. You think I'm cheap.
I'm really cheap.
Oh my God. You might have to give him money to take stuff away. Yeah. Well, thanks, Murr. That was good. If you guys have any questions or comments, actually, about it, like if we missed something or you want to go over a little more, leave that below. I think I'll probably come back and, well, whenever he's getting more done, and we'll follow this thing along for sure. Unless he starts filming. All right. See you in the next one.